Hello everybody. Today I'm going to run through what I think are some of the essentials for Luminar AI. Before I get started, I want to cover a couple of important caveats. Number one, this is not every feature in Luminar AI. What I'm doing is doing a quick power run through of what I think are some of the most important features. Number two, and most importantly, this is a beta version that I'm currently looking at. What that means is there may be some things that are changed between this version and the final version. But it does give you an idea on what I think are some of the most important features within this and what I think some of the really useful tools are. So we'll be covering that right after this. Alrighty, thanks for sticking with me. So as I said, today I'm going to cover what I think are some of the essentials for Luminar AI. Now, as I said, this is not everything. These are just some of the things that I think are important, but nonetheless, we're going to cover them. I'm going to cover things like what is the catalog, cover things like templates, how to do manual edits, and then we're going to go through quite a few of what I think are the really useful and really important editing tools within Luminar AI. But before I get started, I just want to do a quick introduction to Luminar AI for those who are not aware of what it actually is. So Luminar AI is a photo editing tool made by a company called Skylum. Skylum have released quite a few different versions of this, but this is one of the more recent additions. It isn't an upgrade to Luminar 4. It's basically rebuilt from the ground up to use AI to make your life much easier. So the real purpose of Luminar AI is to help you get the best results you can out of your photos as quickly and simply as possible. It's not designed to be a Photoshop or anything like that. It's not designed to be a Lightroom replacement, unlike previous versions were marketed as that. And it's not really designed to be what we call a digital asset manager. So it can manage your photos, but it can't really do keywords and all of those things that you would expect. What it's about, as I said, is really trying to get the best out of your photos so that you can focus on taking the photos and the results rather than the process. So with that in mind, I'm going to start on the catalog. The catalog is very basic. What it does is it lets you look at all your photos, and has some folder capability as well. So at the moment I'm in catalog. So I click on the plus, add folder with images, and then I'm going to click on select and select folder. And it's added all of the photos in there straight away. So that was quick, simple, and painless. If there's multiple folders, you can then select them from here, or you could add albums as well. So to add albums, you just click plus. I'm just going to keep this as new album. I'm going to go all photos, and I could just drag the ones I want into there. So now if I go new album, you can see each of these photos is in that new album. If I add another one, I'll click on show. I can then add my landscape photos, for example. So this is a really quick and easy way for you to add photos and add some level of organization that isn't really keywords and all of those things. All right. So the next thing I'm going to cover is what I'll call templates, or sorry, what Luminar calls templates. And to do that, I'm going to go into a photo. So I'm going to pick this photo over here, which is the a landscape image, and I'm going to double click on it. Now I'll click on templates, and what it's going to do is it's going to bring up for this photo on the right hand side. So for this photo is an AI powered suggestion tool. What it does is it tries to understand the photo, what sort of photo it is, and then it lets you basically it gives you suggestions on what templates it think would improve that photo. So there's things like it's saying, okay, well, there's skies, so maybe we'll apply, you know, some sky templates, or, you know, it's identified it's a landscape. So what can we do to improve the landscape? So I'm going to click on Easy Landscapes, and then it will give me a couple of different options that relate to landscapes. So I could click on sunset and it'll change it. Maybe I don't like that, so I'll try long exposure. And what I could do, if I was happy with this photo, I could just export it as is and not do anything else to it. That's the beauty of templates, is they give you suggestions. You might decide to take those suggestions in their entirety, or you might decide, actually, I need some inspiration. What can I use the template to, you know, show me what the photo could be, and then I can work on it. So if I was happy, I would then just go export. I could choose save to disk, mail, SmugMug, or 500px. If I save photo to disk, I can then change what format I want. Do I want to sharpen, aspect ratios, color space, all those things. But let's say I'm not entirely happy with what the template has done. I can do two things. I can go to templates, go back to templates, and I can have a look at some of the other options. So you'll see, all right, well, there's other landscapes. Maybe overcast might be really interesting to apply. Do I want something that's going to, you know, really take these and work with it? So I can go through the templates and see which ones I like, which ones I don't like. I don't really like any of those. Maybe a sunset one might be better. And there's a whole range of templates for different types of photos. So there's landscape, there's nature, there's portrait, macro, cinematic, even lifestyle, like Instagram style templates. But if I'm happy, I'll go back to Easy Landscapes, and I think long exposure is a good starting point. The benefit I personally think to templates is that you don't have to follow them. So I might decide I really like this as a starting point, but my photo's not finished yet. So I don't lose creative control. What I can do is I can click on edit, and I can then go through the various sections within Luminar AI. So each of these are different filters or actions or whatever you want to call them, and they're grouped. So there's an Essentials tab, there's a Creative tab, there's a Portrait tab, and a Pro tab. Anywhere there's a dot means that something from that has been applied. So if you see the dot up here in Essentials, if I go into Essentials, you'll see there's a dot on light, enhance, color, landscape, and vignette. So that means that this template is applying something from each of those. So if I go into Enhance AI, I might increase the amount of accent AI, and I might increase the sky enhancer. I might decide, do I want to do a bit more golden hour and add a bit more color to that to improve the foliage? And then I might decide, actually, I'd like this to be black and white. So I can then start to edit this and come up with the sort of look that I'm after for this photo. And what I think is really good about this is that I've started off with a template, which was color, it was all of these different things, and I've ended up with something completely different. I wasn't locked into the template, is I guess what I'm trying to say. It gave me the ability to get inspiration, but once I had that inspiration, I could then do whatever I wanted with it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click on this image, and I'm going to go adjustments, revert to original. Because what I want to show you now is more of the manual edit side of things. I've used a template to improve the image, but maybe I just want to work on the image without any inspiration whatsoever from a template. So generally, they're sort of what I'll call the essentials. We go into the actual essentials tab, and I would start off with Enhance AI. So let's start with Accent AI to really give it that color and exposure boost. That's one simple slider. All the way left is 0, all the way right is 100. Generally speaking, 100% is probably not a good idea, but it depends on your photo. Now there's also Sky Enhancer. So what Sky Enhancer does is it's masking the sky and it's just applying edits to the sky. So if I click on this eye on the top right hand side, I can see before and I can see after. So immediately that's a huge change to a photo that was terrible before and is okay now. Look, it's not the best photo, but it's certainly better than what it was before with two simple changes, a couple of sliders. All right, so maybe I've got a different photo though. So over here, I've got a photo which was taken from a plane of New Zealand. I'm going to work on Accent AI, and I could do Sky Enhancer, but the sky just seems a bit flat to me. So what I could do now is I could actually use the sky replacement tool. So if I go down to Creative, you'll see Sky AI. What I can do is I can click on Sky Selection and I can go down to Dramatic Sky 1, for example. And what you'll see is immediately that's masked the sky and it's added in a new sky. But it hasn't really affected and brought the sky down the bottom. What it has done though is it's tried to relight it. So if you look, some of the colors do change to try and blend that in. You can adjust the horizon blending if you need to. The horizon position, maybe you want it higher, maybe you want it lower. Depends on what suits. You can relight the scene if you want to try and improve it. But the whole purpose of this tool is to use AI to improve, to basically mask where is the sky and let you replace it with a very simple drop down box. So I can go from something that was, it's a nice sky, but it's a bland photo, to something that is a bit more dramatic straight away. And I'm using skies that are built in, but you can add your own custom skies as well. So you don't have to use some of the photos that are within here. You can add your own. It just depends what you're trying to look for. I've changed the sky. Maybe what I think this photo needs though is a bit of depth. So I'm going to use Atmosphere AI. What Atmosphere AI does is it depth maps the image to try and add more realistic fog and things within it. So if I pick fog, I can then increase the amount. And what you'll see is it's actually trying to do it so that you can adjust the depth and you can make it appear further away or you can make it appear closer. It's actually trying to understand and depth map the photo to make it a little bit more realistic. So that's, I think, a really handy tool because it lets you add mist and fog and all of these sorts of things to add something that your photo might not have had before, but not have to worry about depth map and all of those sorts of things. So I think that's a really helpful tool. Not for every photo, but for a lot of photos it probably is useful. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into some portraits. So I've got a couple of different photos here, and I'm going to cover what I'll call Portrait AI. Now, there's a lot of different parts in this, but to access it, we go to the Portrait section. What this does is there's Face AI, Skin AI, and Body AI. and they all use artificial intelligence to try and mask the image. And once it's masked certain parts of the image, it will make adjustments automatically. So let's start off with a really common thing that's done on portrait photos to improve blemishes and things on the skin. On Skin AI, and you can just increase the amount. And so if I show before and then after, it's very subtle, but you can see that it's smoothing the skin out. Now I could also go skin defect removal, and that'll remove any bigger blemishes and those sorts of things. And I could apply some shine removal. Notice there's 2 sliders and a checkbox. There's no masking to really have to worry about with this. So I think this is a really handy tool, especially if you just want to get quick and easy improvements to portraits, and you're someone like me, for example, who really doesn't shoot portrait photos much. Now I'm going to include the links to these photos, the portraits. They were from Unsplash and a few other places, so I'll show you those later on. Now what I can also do is I can go into Face AI, and Face AI originally will look like this, and you can start off by applying face lighting. So this will just change the lighting on the face. We can also slim the face. So a couple of really simple sliders to kind of sculpt the face. Now I wouldn't suggest you go to 100% because that's going to look silly. So that's it for sculpting the face and lighting the face. 2 sliders. Again, no masking, nothing to worry about. It's really simple and really easy. Now I might decide that I want to make adjustments to the mouth next. So do I want to adjust the saturation of the lips or the redness of the lips? Now this is a black and white style photo, so it's going to look very silly. But obviously in a color photo, that's going to change. You might decide to darken and redden the lips. So, but again, what this is actually doing is it's identifying where the lips are, and it's making those changes quickly and easily. By far my favorite feature though is eyes. I think this is really cool because what it does is it masks the iris, and it lets you make really quick and really simple changes. So if I want to change the color of this model's eyes, I just check original and let's make it blue. That's it. It's masked the eyes and it's changed the color that quickly without me having to worry about it. I might decide brown is better. I might decide that I want to enlarge the eyes. That's 1 slider. Want to whiten the eyes. 1 slider. Enhance the eyes. Remove any red eye. Now there isn't any in this, so it doesn't really apply. Any dark circles under the eyes, I can use 1 slider. And I can darken the eyebrows with 1 slider. So again, 100% is almost always a bad idea, but you can see how quickly I've been able to make those changes. So the next thing I'm going to show is Body AI. So I've got a photo of a model here, and I'm going to go into Essentials, and I'm just really quickly going to apply Enhance AI just to improve the color so we can see a bit more. Sorry, the exposure. So I'll go to Portrait and I'll go to Body AI. What's really cool about this is I can sculpt the body with a simple slider. So I can change it to make it bigger or smaller with just 1 simple slider. It's super quick and it's super easy. You know, I don't need to worry about which area is right, which area is wrong. I might decide that, I just want it to be a little bit thinner or, you know, a little bit bigger. So that's really quick and really simple. 2 sliders, no masking, really very little to worry about. All right, so I'm going to pick a different photo now, and I'm going to show you another tool called Composition AI. So Composition AI is in the Essentials tab, and it's Composition AI. Now what I can do is I can select what ratio I want, so 1:1 square, and click on Composition AI. And what this will do is it will automatically suggest a composition for the photo. I might decide, yep, I'm happy with this one, I'm going to go with it, and I can just select it, that's fine, or I could change it as required. Now I'm going to stick with this one. I could also go into Composition AI, and I could rotate the image, I could mirror the image, and I could automatically adjust the perspective. So I think that they're really handy tools to automatically improve perspective and try and get the best out of your photo. Now you don't have to use that tool, and you can use it as a starting point and then go from there. So that's Composition AI, fairly quick and simple. What I'm going to do now is I am going to go into, so Structure AI is a useful tool that tries to intelligently apply sharpening or local contrast to specific areas that it thinks needs it without applying it across the whole image. So what I could do is I could increase the sharpness, and what you'll notice is it's not doing the leaves, but it is doing the background and the butterfly. So in this example of Structure AI, I've got a person in the photo, and I'm deliberately getting it to increase the structure, and you'll notice it's not affecting the face. So what Structure AI is really good for is quite intelligent improvements of structure. It's one of those tools that I think can be really helpful across quite a broad range of photos. You know, in this case, it's not doing much to the sky, but it is improving the mountains. So, you know, that's a really good example of where I think it can be quite useful. So another tool that I want to show you is the Erase and Clone Stamp tools. So I'm going to go back into my butterfly photo, and there's a little ant here that I find really annoying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Erase. I've got Select, and I might decrease the brush radius slightly. Then I just paint where I want to be removed and then click on Erase. And what that's going to do is that's going to automatically try and find areas where it thinks it take pixels from and use that to replace it. So I'm going to pick another example now. I've got a photo of the family dog, and there's a little bit down there where the magnifying glass is. So I can click on Erase, just paint this little section in, and then Erase. And what it's going to do is it's going to try and search around for areas where it thinks it can fill that blank in from and fill that blank. So all of a sudden now that distracting element is now gone. So that's the Erase tool. The difference between Erase and Clone and Stamp is that Erase doesn't really give you the option on where you're trying to replace the pixels from. So what I mean by that is if I look at this photo here, let's say there's this area here that I want gone. What I could do is I could go into Pro and then Clone and Stamp. And what Clone and Stamp does is it says click here to set the source. So in this case, I'm saying I want it to be taken from here. And now I'm saying I want to replace this. And what that's done is that's taken the pixels from here to replace there. So it actually lets me pick exactly where I want to replace it from. Whereas the Erase tool didn't allow us to do that. So you can pick certain areas that you think look better or worse to replace it from. So Clone and Stamp tool does give you that extra flexibility that the Erase tool doesn't. The Erase tool just says, what do you want to erase? Let's say I want to erase these. I just paint them in and it just replaces it. it's trying to work out exactly where it should take the information from, and then it will erase it. So I think for beginners, the erase tool is probably going to be enough, but for certain photos, you may need to use the clone and stamp tool in professional. And that will let you pick where your source is. So if you're trying to replace an area here, where do you want to replace it from? So that lets you do that. So the very last tool that I want to cover is the masking tool. So sometimes there's a photo that you want to make changes to, but you don't want to make a change to the entire photo. So you might want to apply a certain section and not everything else. So let's say in this photo, I'm just going to do Accent AI. But maybe over here, I want to change the colors a bit, but I don't want to do that across the whole photo. Do Sky Enhance as well. So what I can do is I can click on Local Masking. I'm then going to click on Add, and I'm going to do Basic. So I'm going to do a paint mask. I could do radial or gradient. In this case, I'm just going to paint. So I've got the paintbrush, and I can now start to paint the areas that I want my effect to be applied to. Now I can adjust the radius, which makes the brush bigger or smaller, or you can use the square brackets to also make that adjustment. So let's say I want to apply it just to this rock and maybe to a little bit over here as well. So what I've done is I've painted where I want this to be applied, and now maybe I want to adjust exposure. So of course that's going to look really silly because the exposure is so different, but I might want to make this a little bit warmer. I might want to adjust the highlights or a bit of AI structure. Maybe apply a bit more vibrance to this area, for example. And masking lets me pick where I'm making all these adjustments and what not to apply them to. But what's really cool is, so that's local masking. If I actually go in, let's say, Enhance AI, I can bring this up to 100% and you'll notice that there's a paintbrush here. If I click on this paintbrush, I can do the same things. So I can paint in where I want it to be applied. Maybe I want to have a certain section down here for some reason where the effect is applied and not in other areas. So what you'll notice is I'm able to adjust how well this works and to which section it's applied. You know, so this gives me this really kind of incredible ability to paint in masks and paint in AI tools. Now I've painted that, so anywhere that's red is basically where this filter is going to be applied. If I want to remove it, I just click on the eraser and I paint out. So now that's not been applied over here. So that's the masking tool. So I hope you found this really useful. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments section or hit me up on social media. So if you're interested in Luminar AI, I'll put a link to it in the description. It comes out on the 15th of December. So if you are interested, it's probably worth pre-ordering because its price will go up after the 15th of December. Thanks for watching. To love what I'm doing, never give up, never slow till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Yeah, I put out all this art, it's my only medicine. Yeah, everything I do, I'm just being genuine. Yeah, I'm sick of being screwed, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.